everyone. We are here again. It is Saturday. We've made it through a full first week. I hope that everyone is doing well. Things are good. Wanted to continue with reading our book. So we've got Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Chapter 2. The day Dad told me he wanted to apply for a job as a theme park manager in Arizona, I thought it was quite possible aliens had taken over his brain. Either aliens or the government. I knew from my great-grandma the government was capable of dreadful things. She was always saying stuff like, "If the public only knew what the government was up to, there would be a revolution," and pumping her spotted, wrinkled hand in the air. I wasn't completely sure why an 86-year-old woman who lived in a trailer in Kansas was the only person privy to this top secret information. But she clearly was. So, I wouldn't put it past the government to insert some kind of mind control chip into Dad's brain and force him to run a crumbling theme park in the desert. My parents discussed it with me one night over a dinner of buttered noodles, my favorite meal. Oh, man. I just realized they deliberately buttered me up with buttered noodles. So, I got an email from a guy by the name of Joe Kavanaugh, Dad said over his noodles. He owns a place called Stagecoach Pass. What's that? I asked, slurping up a noodle. It's this Western-themed amusement park in Arizona. I guess he found my resume on one of the job sites where I posted it. Anyway, he invited me to apply for the position of general manager at the park. He must have been impressed with your resume, Mr. Big-Time Restaurant Manager, said Mom. Well, said Dad, I'm not really sure how managing a restaurant relates to managing an entire theme park, but I guess a huge part of their business is the steakhouse there, so that's probably why he contacted me. Are you going to apply? I asked. It does sound interesting, said Dad. I scowled. Arizona is really far away. Don't forget you were born there, Sheeps, Dad said. We spent a lot of time there during your adoption, and we really liked it. We even thought it might be a great place to retire one day. The winter was so beautiful, warm and sunny. I'm sick of icy winters. What's the summer like? I asked. Mom grimaced. I've heard it's kind of like the surface of the sun. It could be an exciting adventure. Dad waggled his eyebrows at me. Swimming and soccer all year long? I glared at my noodles. I don't think I want to play soccer on the surface of the sun. Come on, said Dad. You're such a pro, you could play soccer anywhere. Stop trying to entice me, I said. You haven't even applied yet. Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to. On the one hand, the thought of leaving Kansas, and the only home I could ever remember, sounded worse than anything. On the other, Dad had lost his job nearly 6 months earlier when the restaurant he'd been managing went out of business. He really needed this. It's okay with me, I mumbled, feeling like I might cry. Dad applied, and then he and Mom were invited to go to Arizona for an interview and to check the place out. And then they were invited to stay and run the theme park together. Turns out it was more of a 2-person job. And so we sold off a ton of our furniture and donated the junk we didn't need and packed the rest of our belongings into a giant pod that would magically disappear from Kansas and magically reappear in Arizona a week later. We drove our old car over 1,000 miles westward across the country, praying the entire time that we wouldn't break down. We managed to make it in one single long day without stopping at a hotel until we got to Phoenix. By the time we arrived, Dad's eyes looked like atomic fireballs, and Mom's hair looked like she'd taken a spin in a hairspray cyclone. Early the next morning, we drove by the giant covered wagon with Stagecoach Pass printed on it in large brown block letters. And I saw the park for the first time. Then I knew for sure the government and mind control chips were involved. Chapter 3. We parked in the large dirt parking lot and got out of the car. I squinted from the bright hot sun. Had the sun been this bright in Kansas? I didn't think so. I looked around. I'd never seen so much brown before. Not a patch of grass anywhere. Did grass even exist in Arizona? Again, I didn't think so. We walked over the compacted dirt toward the entrance, which wasn't closed up, even though the park wasn't open yet. I guess they weren't too worried about people sneaking in. A lizard skittered across the dirt in front of me, and I jumped back. The dirt never ended. There were no sidewalks or grass or paved anything at Stagecoach Pass. Just dirt and old wooden buildings with old wooden steps and old wooden porches that looked like they might collapse at any time. "Good morning!" A cheerful, gray-mustached man greeted us from one of the porches. He wore a cowboy hat and held a mug of something steamy. Coffee? In this heat? "Good morning," Mom and Dad said at the same time. "Nice to see you again, Gary," said Mom. I looked at her. "He's the one who interviewed us," she whispered to me. "He's the accountant for the park." Gary walked down the steps. "And this must be Avon." "Our one and only," Dad said, squeezing his arm around me. I gave Gary a polite smile. He seemed nice enough, even though his gray mustache was awfully pointy. "Well," Gary said, tossing his coffee on the dirt, where it dried in about 2 seconds. "I bet you're tired after your long trip. I'll take you up to the apartment." As we trudged toward our new living quarters, which were apparently located right over the steakhouse, Dad asked, "So when do we get to meet Joe Kavanaugh?" "Oh, no one ever meets Joe," said Gary. "Not around here much." "That's strange," said Mom. "A business owner who doesn't visit his own business?" Gary smiled and tilted his hat at her. "That's why Joe needs good managers, ma'am." Mom and Dad had described the apartment as a cozy but humble little place. They weren't kidding about the cozy, or the humble, or the little. Gary and a few other men from the park, all dressed like cowboys, carried our stuff up from the car. After Mom and I finished putting away my suitcase of bare necessities, she said to me, "Why don't you go out and explore, honey?" "What's there to explore?" "Tons of stuff," she said. "There's a gold mine and a gift shop and a museum and a soda shop. You could get yourself an ice cream." She looked at her watch. "It won't be open for a half hour, though." So I went out and explored for about 5 minutes. The heat got more and more intense with every second until I was forced into the air-conditioned museum. The museum was actually more like a room. Just one room with picture-covered walls and a few artifacts in glass cases. These artifacts included a collection of stone arrowheads, some broken Navajo pottery pieces, a pistol from the 1800s, a pair of old spurs, and a genuine dead tarantula with an information board that shared facts like, tarantulas have no teeth, so they use their venom to liquefy their prey and suck up the liquid nastiness directly into their stomachs. How awesome is that? I scanned the framed photographs on the walls, the old wooden floorboards creaking under my feet. Most of the pictures were black and white, taken a long time ago when Stagecoach Pass first opened. It looked like it was quite the place back then. Crowds and rodeos and even parades on Main Street. Then I came to an empty space on the wall, where it seemed a picture had been removed. The nameplate beneath the empty space had been left up and said, "The Kavanaughs, Stagecoach Pass, 2004. I looked around at the rest of the photos and each of their nameplates, but I couldn't find any more of the Kavanaughs. I I thought about what Gary had said. No one ever meets Joe. And I wondered why. There you are, Dad said from behind me. I've been looking for you. I turned around. Just getting some cool air. Don't worry, Dad wiped the sweat from his forehead. It'll cool down soon. Guess what? What? The rodeo arena is all closed down, so I thought we could set up a soccer goal out there and practice. That sounds great. You want to go kick the ball around now? Isn't it too hot? Never. Plus, we can keep cool with ice cream. What if I get a sunburn? They have sunblock in the gift shop. I smiled. You have an answer for everything, don't you? Dad put an arm around me and led me into the gift shop. Of course! Didn't you know that dads know everything? I snorted as he picked out a small tube of sunblock from a rack. I'd like to be there when you tell Mom that.